gears, let's gather round, an adventure is always waiting. With storytelling news for us, and we always know what's happening. We act, we play, we dance, we sing from 9 to 10 on Saturday morning. Youth on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Youth on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning to all of our radio listeners or viewers via Von Radio's Facebook page and YouTube channel, and welcome to this edition of Youth on the Go here on Von Radio. I am Zahnela Claxton from the Ministry of Education et al., and it is indeed a pleasure to be here with you this Saturday, as well as every Saturday, to share any updates, any opportunities, any activities that can benefit our students, our young people here in Nevis, and of course, those beyond our borders who may also be able to benefit from some of the opportunities shared. This Saturday is the 4th Saturday of the month, which means we have some special guests because it's our disaster management edition of Youth on the Go. However, before we get there, we are going to bring some updates to you. We know that our schools are currently actively engaged in several things. We have our track and field season, some people call it sports season. We have Black History coming, we have Valentine's coming, we have, above all else, we're trying to stay on top of our academics to make sure that our students stay on track. And so we want to make sure that we provide you with the information that you need to be able to navigate the next few weeks. We had our first sports meet yesterday. That meet was the Maud Smith Preschool's meet, and so we want to say commendations to Mrs. Myers and team there at Maud Smith Preschool for executing a child-friendly event, very well executed child-friendly event, and kudos Teacher Myers as usual on a job well done. Coming up, we see on February 9th, Charlestown Secondary will have their meet at the Nevis Athletic Stadium. Gingerland Secondary will be on February 15th, same venue. Charlestown Primary, February 20th. Ivor Walters Primary, February 21st. Elizabeth Pemberton Primary, February 22nd. Nevis Academy, February 27th. Joycelyn Libert Primary, February 29th. NISS, March 1st, and NISS will have their meet at the Flats next to EPPS. St. James Primary will have theirs on the 5th, and that will be at the St. James Playfield. We'll also see Modcross Preschool doing their meet on the 5th at the ETW Park. St. Thomas's Primary on March 6th at the Nevis Athletic Stadium. Cicely Brown Integrated School, March 7th, same venue. March 8th, VOJN Primary at the VOJN Field. March 8th also, we'll see Gingerland Preschool at the Hard Times Playfield. The 12th of March, we'll see VNJ's Preschool at the ETW Park. Modcross Prep will have their meet on March 13th at the Nevis Athletic Stadium. March 14th, Naomi's Preschool will be at the St. Thomas's Primary Field. Montessori Academy, March 15th at the Bath Playfield. Inez France Preschool, March 15th at the Bath Playfield. We'll also see Commoner Preschool at the VOJN Field on March 20th. Vernon Preschool at their school's grounds on March 25th. Charlestown Preschool, March 26th at the ETW Park, and March 27th, St. John's Preschool at the Bath Field. Also, please take into consideration that we have a meet, Jinxing Up Classic meet, scheduled to take place on February 25th, and this is a collaboration between the Department of Sports St. Kitts and the Department of Sports on Nevis. This meet was held last year at the Kim Collins Stadium, and it is quite similar to the Inter-High with the exception of the field events. So that is slated to take place on February 25th, and you should see all public secondary schools on St. Kitts and Nevis participating in that meet. On March 9th through 10th, that over that weekend, we will see the Nevis High Schools Championship, and the competing schools are the schools here on Nevis, Charlestown Secondary School, Gingerland Secondary School, and Nevis International Secondary School. And then on April 3rd, we'll have the Inter-Primary Schools Championship, and that closes out the track and field season. We also have a few classics coming up, Carifta Trials. We have the classic next weekend, where we'll have our students, club athletes, competing for or at least vying or trying to qualify for Carifta. And then the Carifta Trials proper, which will be the final day for any person to qualify for Carifta, will take place right here at the Nevis Athletic Stadium, and that is slated for March 2nd. Also, gentle reminder, or not so gentle reminder, that coming right around the corner we have the Leeward Islands Debating Competition. And that competition is scheduled to take place in St. Kitts. We look forward to seeing our members of the Nevis Literary and Debating Society participating in this year's edition of LIDC. We had a hiatus during COVID, and last year our team was not able to compete, and so they are working hard. They've had their in-school debate, and among the students at the sixth form, the members of the debating society, they are practicing, they are fundraising, and they are ensuring that they are prepared for, I say, all 3 nights, and where they will be vying for the final award of the winners of the Leeward Islands debating competition. The first night, the first event, Nevis versus Montserrat. The scheduled time currently is during the day, and so that's why I had to correct myself there, and I will give you the final times as soon as they are received. But debate 1, higher education institutions should ban the use of artificial intelligence in academic discourse, and that will be Nevis versus Montserrat. We then will see Anguilla versus Antigua. Social media is detrimental to the Caribbean region's cultural identity. Debate 3, St. Martin versus winner of Night 1, that will be Nevis. I'm speaking it into existence. The Caribbean region is adequately prepared to respond to future pandemics and health crises. Debate 4, St. Kitts versus winner of Debate 2, Caribbean nations have sufficiently improved their education systems to prepare youth for 21st century challenges. And the final night, the winner of Debate 3 and versus the winner of Debate 4, the feminist movement has become focused on attacking men rather than promoting the equality of women. And so, once again, listeners, we are preparing for our students and their teachers and coaches at the Nevis Sixth Form are preparing for the Leeward Islands debating competition, scheduled to commence on the 29th of February, and with the culminating activity taking place on March 3rd, 2024. And so we look forward to that. There are a few other opportunities that I'll share with you next week, because we have to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to be joined by our ambassadors for today, and we can't wait to meet them.
In Queen City, Nevis, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, Vaughan Radio.
It's time, come on, rise and shine. You know, I know, we're gonna have a great time. An hour passes quickly, you don't wanna miss it. So turn up the radio, it's you on the go. Youth on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Oh, youth on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Whoa, let's go. I will learn new things. I will be creative. Grab your gears Let's gather round, an adventure is always waiting. With storytelling news for us, and we always know what's happening. We act, we play, we dance, we sing from 9 to 10 on Saturday morning. Youth on the go. Whoa. Let's start the show. Youth on the go. Whoa. Let's start the show. Whoa. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning to all of our radio listeners, our viewers via One Radio's Facebook page and YouTube channel, and welcome to this edition of Youth on the Go here on One Radio. I am Zahnela Claxton from the Ministry of Education et al., and it is the fourth Saturday of the month, which means we have some ambassadors with us. During this Saturday, we spent some time focusing on disaster resilience and ensuring that our ambassadors from our various schools have the opportunity to share with all of you so that you can be informed and that you can be ready for the disaster of focus for that month. And so this is a collaboration between the Ministry of Education et al., Multi-Hazard Youth on the Go, and Nevis Disaster Management Department. The Nevis Disaster Management Department, in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and the faith-based community, has commenced their monthly multi-hazard awareness campaign for 2024. The monthly multi-hazards awareness campaign highlights a specific hazard as the themed hazard for the given month to spread safety awareness and educate the general public on what to do before, during, and after the hazard's occurrence. The campaign, in the meantime, is spearheaded by several target audience groups, namely the school-based and faith-based audience groups. It aims to establish an effective participatory approach in multi-hazard awareness, where the target audiences become the voice of safety. Hence, the denominations in schools are assigned a particular hazard in a given month. This month, we have the Charlestown Primary School and the Wesleyan Holiness Church, and they have been given the lead on earthquake awareness for the month of January. And so with that said, we know we have some special students, some tigers. We have some tigers in the house. We have some tiger ambassadors in the house, and they will introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kajne Keynes, and I'm representing the Charlestown Primary School.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Taylor, and I am from the Charlestown Primary School.
All right, and of course, students, thank you so much, ambassadors, and we will be joined later by a call-in guest, Dr. Elias, and he'll join us, and he'll have a conversation with us as well. And during that time, he'll get to introduce himself. So, before we go too far into the conversation, we all have heard of earthquakes. Some persons have claimed to have felt earthquakes. Kajna, tell us, what do you know about earthquakes?
Earthquakes are the shaking, rolling, or sudden shock of the Earth's surface. Earthquakes happen along cracks called fault lines in the Earth's surface. Earthquakes can be felt over large areas, although they usually last less than 1 minute. Earthquakes cannot be predicted, although scientists are working on it.
All right, so thank you so much, Kajna and Brian. You're going to pick up and you're going to tell us, where can earthquakes happen?
Earthquakes can happen at any time, and the Caribbean is known to experience them.
All right, so that means we have to be very alert, listeners and viewers, because we are in the Caribbean, so we are prone to occurrences of earthquakes. And so, Kajna, back to you. Tell the listening audience, what do we do before an earthquake?
1. Build an emergency kit. 2. Make family communications plan. 3. Know the safe spots in every room, under a sturdy table or against an inside wall. 4. Ask your family to hold earthquake drills. Drop, cover, and hold on.
Okay, thank you. And over to you, Brian. What do we do when an earthquake happens while we are in a building?
1. Drop to the ground. 2. Take cover under a sturdy table or other heavy furniture. If there is nothing to get under, cover your face and head with your arms and crouch near an inside wall. 3. Hold on till the shaking stops. 4. Stay away from windows, glass, lighting fixtures, or other heavy furniture that could fall, like bookcases. 5. Stay inside and wait for aftershock.
Okay, so we've learned a bit about what to do before. We've learned a bit about what to do if we're inside a building. But the reality is that not everyone will be inside a building when an earthquake occurs. Because remember, we can't predict it as yet, so we can be anywhere. So Kajna, tell those who are listening what they should do if they are outside during an earthquake, which could be their reality.
Stay there. Move away from buildings, streetlights, and wires. They may fall and hurt you. Stay out in the open until the shaking stops. Buildings may collapse and hurt you.
Okay, so the reality is, and for those listening, and Kajna, based on what you just said, and Kajna, is it okay if I call you Star? Sometimes?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so, Star, you've told us some of the things that we can do if we find ourselves outside, and I think the one thing that everyone has to understand and realize is that you make sure that you're clear from anything that can fall on you. I think that is the summary of it all. And so if you are trapped within a space that has a lot of buildings, you have to find yourself in a space that is more open. So a perfect place on an earthquake, if an earthquake were to happen and you were at school, Kajne, where would be the perfect place for you to go if you're at school and there's an earthquake, an open area that doesn't have trees and buildings that can fall?
I would walk out carefully on top of our school's field. Then I will drop cover and hold on and wait until the earthquake stops. When the earthquake stops, they might have an aftershock.
Okay, so you still have to wait a little bit longer, right? Great job. And so at Charlestown Primary, the open area, something similar to what Star described, is actually your school's field because you don't have buildings and all of the things that may fall on you. You don't have large trees. It's actually a pretty open space because that is where you do some of your PE activities and some of those activities. So it is generally one of the safer spaces instead of being the actual building. Of course, if you're in the actual building, based on what we said earlier, there are things that we would have to do as well because it's not every time that we'll have enough time to get out and get onto the field. Sometimes we'll be in the building, and if we're in the building, we got the tips on what to do as well. We'll talk a bit about those. So there are some people who work within buildings, and that's your part of your daily activity, and then there are some of us who work outdoors or who may have activities outdoors. And so we know, just like the field above the Charlestown Primary School, and most schools have a field, so students who are listening, you may want to find your field or make sure that you're in that open cleared space and find that space until the earthquake passes. Star said that you may experience an aftershock, so please be alert, please be aware that you don't just dash back into a building after an earthquake. You have to give yourself some wait time as well. All right, back over to you, Brian. What if you're trapped under debris? What do you do? Because the reality is that you may be inside a building when an earthquake occurs. So what happens if you're trapped under debris? What should you do?
1. Cover your mouth and nose with your shirt. 2. Do not scream. You can breathe in the dust. 3. Step on a pipe or wall so that rescuers can find you.
Okay, so Brian, you're telling me that if you're trapped under debris, that you don't start hollering for somebody come. That's not the best thing to do because that's a natural thing to do, isn't it, students?
Yes, that's true.
Yes, but that's not the right thing to do, you're saying.
Correct.
Okay, so the right thing to do is actually to
do not scream.
Do not scream, right? I think I would naturally scream. So do not scream. That's important for you listeners. And then Brian gave us some other tips to make sure that you cover your
mouth and nose with your shirt.
Why? What will get into you if you don't cover your mouth and nose with your shirt? What could possibly happen because you're stuck under the debris?
You might cough because of the dust.
The dust will get into your lungs. So the same way, I think the same effect you will have if you scream, with quite a similar effect if you don't cover your nose and mouth, because the dust, remember, if the debris is there, it's because the building has caved, and so you'll have all the dust still circulating, and it will be very dense and thick, and so it will go into your lungs, and you don't need the dust in your lungs, because it will kind of give you cause struggles for breathing. Okay, all right, I love the third one, Brian, so let's talk about that one a bit. Why do you think we should tap on the wall or a pipe?
So that the rescuers could find you.
So the hope is that they would hear the tap, tap, tap.
Yes.
And be able to locate exactly where you are.
Yes.
Okay, and that would also tell them that you're alive. So it sends two important messages, because the reality is sometimes when walls cave, it causes loss of life. Okay, so very important information. So we've gotten to the debris, which means that the walls caved, which means that an earthquake happened. So Kajne, tell us, what should we do after the earthquake?
After an earthquake, you should expect aftershocks. They are usually not as strong, but they can cause damage. Open cabinets carefully. Objects may have moved and could fall on you. Text, don't talk, as you may block the phone lines for emergency workers.
Okay, similarly, I think that our natural inclination, that means the thing that we would do without thinking, is to call people as soon as something happens, because it's exciting and it's hot news, right? Oh my gosh, this has happened. But it's important, Sas said, to text, not talk, so you don't want to stop or cause challenges for the emergency workers when they're trying to get calls out about persons who may be injured, who may need help, and so you text as far as possible so that you don't block up the phone lines, because sometimes we really just want to call somebody and tell them that we're safe, or we want to call somebody and tell them what we experienced because it was such a frightening experience, but things like that can cause challenges with the phone lines. And so those are considerations, those are things that we have to think about even during and after an earthquake, when we are feeling scared, when we are trying to figure out what happened, when we want to really make sure that our friends and family members are also safe. Those are some of the things to think about. Now, ambassadors, these are a lot of things to think about when you really are going through an experience that is what we call traumatic, right? And so it's important for people to know about them now, so that when it happens, it becomes like your second nature, the go-to thing, the thing that you would do naturally, instead of what your natural self, outside of having this information, would do. All right, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll tell the audience what we do when an earthquake happens while we're in a building. Okay? We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back.
When VON vibrates, the whole Caribbean must shake.
8:60 a.m. The Powerhouse.
It's time, come on, rise and shine. You know, I know we're gonna have a great time. And now it passes quickly, you don't wanna miss it. So turn up the radio, it's you on the go. Youth on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Oh, youth on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Whoa, let's go. I will learn new things. I will be creative. Grab your gears, let's gather around, and adventure is always waiting. The storytelling news for us, and we always know what's happening. We act, we play, we dance, we sing from 9 to 10 on Saturday morning. Youth on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Oh, youth on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Whoa, let's go.
All right, welcome back to this edition of Youth on the Go here on Von Radio, and we are here this morning with some CPS Tigers. They're Tiger ambassadors from the Charlestown Primary School. We have with us
Kajnikins, representing the Charlestown Primary School.
We also have
Brian Taylor, who's representing the Charlestown Primary School.
Awesome. So we have Kajne and Brian, and so far they've given us tips for what to do before an earthquake, what we do during an earthquake, what we do after an earthquake. But there are some key words that our listeners need to know. And these words will help them to understand maybe news reports or any bits of information that they may get. And so we want to share those words with them and what they mean. Star, tell them the first word. What is a seismic activity?
Seismic activity, another word for earthquakes along with tremors, quakes, and shakers.
Okay, so we're now seeing several words that are associated with earthquakes. Seismic activity, tremors, quakes, and shakers, and they all kind of mean same thing. So when you hear them, listeners, know that that's what they're talking about. Brian, what are fault lines?
Fault lines are cracks in the rocks below the Earth's surface.
Okay, and Star, aftershocks. Tell us what are aftershocks.
Aftershock, a smaller earthquake that follows the main shock of or previous earthquake.
Okay, and you spoke about aftershocks much earlier when we were talking about after the earthquake, don't move yet, make sure you stay put because you can experience an aftershock. So for those who missed it that round, that's what Star was talking about earlier. Brian, what is the epicenter?
Epicenter is the center of an earthquake from which seismic waves are sent spherically in many directions.
Okay, and Star, seismograph. What is a seismograph?
Seismograph, a machine that measures an earthquake.
Okay, so we've gone through what an earthquake is, we've gone through some key terms, we've gone through what to do before, during, and after, but we haven't had the chance yet, ambassadors, to talk about some of our own experiences. Has either of you ever experienced an earthquake? Or felt one, or tremor, or anything, any shaking?
No.
No?
Never.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I've never experienced it either, but from time to time when I get up, I see people put up on their status and that they felt a tremor, they felt a shake, but I have never felt one either. So you actually have been around for tremors, not earthquake. You felt there have been shakes, but you haven't been around for a full-on earthquake. But according to reports from persons right here on Nevis, they felt some tremors. So I don't know if you've ever felt those. Maybe you were a bit too busy playing. You might have been on the playground running, and so you felt the shake, but it was you felt like it was your body shaking. Maybe that's what it was. Or maybe you were fast asleep, depending on the time of day. Okay, but you have been part of earthquake drills, haven't you?
Yes, we have.
Okay,
Yes.
because the Charlestown Primary School is the school that ensures that the public is aware of earthquakes and what happens during an earthquake. And so I know that you've been part of those drills and those activities. So tell us a bit about your experience with the earthquake drills and what obtained for you. Either one of you can start.
We had to, do the drill. They had teachers and they blew the horn, and we had to, walk down carefully, no running, might get panicked. So we walked down carefully and we walked onto the field, made sure that we drop cover hold on, and then after the earthquake was finished, we had to stay there, wait a little while for the, aftershock.
Okay. Awesome. Brian, did you ever have to do the drop cover hold on or anything inside the classroom?
Yes.
Okay, well, tell us about that one.
We started when we heard the horn. We had to get under the table real quick. We had to do this DCH, drop cover hold on, and then when it stopped, we had to run out of the classroom and walk up the field, and then we had to wait, and then the earthquake stopped, and then we had to wait for a little while.
Okay, so you did both. So,
Yes.
so now you're prepared for when you're in the classroom, what you should do, when you're on the field, what you should do, and what you should do if you're in the classroom and then you have to leave to get onto the field. So you're prepared for all scenarios while you are at school. Do you think you're prepared for in case you're at home when this happens?
Yes,
And
I think
you think so? And so
I'm
if
not sure.
you're not sure, so let's talk about it, because maybe you're more prepared than you think. Based on what you know, if you're at home and there's an earthquake and you're in the house, what would you do? Based on what you know.
I will get under a table
Okay. You get under the table. Mm-hmm.
and cover my head and face
Mm-hmm.
with my arms and crouch under the table. That's all.
Okay. So you realize, Brian, you really are ready for if one comes when you're at home?
Yes.
Under a table, if you have a sturdy frame bed and you have
Yes.
space, you can go under there. I mean, it's a safe space, a space that in case anything you can kind of be protected.
Yeah.
And so you realize that even though you practiced at school, what you learned can be transferred to when you're at home. You realize that, Brian?
Yes.
So now, what if I have to ask you the question again? If you're at home and there's an earthquake, do you think you're prepared?
Yes.
All right. So Kajana, you're outside. You're at home, but you're outside playing, and there is an earthquake. Do you think you're prepared, and what would you do?
yes, I feel like I am very prepared.
Okay, tell us what you do.
I would, if I see like all the earthquakes and whatever, I would move away from buildings like street lights. Make sure I'm not around any wires. Be in an open space like our school field, and I would drop, cover, hold on.
Okay.
These things, they are very important.
Yeah, but the public might not know. Those who are listening might not know what these things are. So tell them what they are, because you're
These
showing.
things
Mhm.
are hands.
Hands. Yes. Okay.
So I would use these things, hands, and I would cover my face, make sure that, no dust comes and whatever. I take my shirt, like what Brian said earlier, and I, cover. And when the earthquake stops, you're not too sure, but there might be an aftershock. So, yeah, you stay there for a little while, and then you go back inside.
Okay. So I am confident that you're confident that you're ready, and so I'm also confident that if you were to experience an earthquake, that you would know exactly what to do. And I think that the most important thing for you is to ensure that you do not panic. Why? You know what to do. You're prepared. You know what to do before, you know what to do during, you know what to do after. It's important for you to keep a level head and for you to remember all the things that you've practiced, all the things that you've learned. And for our listeners and viewers out there, they also have to remember everything that you said, because you are now the official educators, the ambassadors when it comes to earthquakes. And if they listen to your advice, they will be safe and they'll be ready, they'll be prepared if they were to face an earthquake. So I'm so proud of you. Now, if you had to pick up all the things that you talked about and that Star that you talked about, Brian, that you talked about, or either one of you, or that we shared today, if you had to think of one or two things, it's not limited to one, it could be more, things that you want persons to really, really remember, or things that you think are extremely important, what would those be for you to share with our listeners?
I personally, I enjoyed speaking about how you're supposed to get your emergency kit ready, communicate with family members, to do a drill. I personally, I love that one because it's telling you, it's giving you information, it's telling you what to do before an earthquake. For example, you're supposed to have, for example, bandages, your torch, batteries, especially loads of water, and make sure your phone is charged so that you can communicate by texting. And Star, in terms of the communication plan and the emergency kit, you stated some of the things that can be in the emergency kit, but if you had to develop a communication plan with your family, what would be some of the steps that you would have to take in creating that communication plan? So first, for example, I would go by my grandmother's house, and she has a little open field in her yard, so I would stay there and we will come together and we'll make this drill. So for example, we're going to be there and we're going to be acting like there's an emergency and there's an earthquake and whatever, so we're going to run outside onto the field so that we can do an outside drill. So we run outside onto her open field, drop, cover, hold on, cover. We wait until the earthquake is all finished. As I said before, you never know if there might be an aftershock. So you wait until the aftershock and you move on.
All right, and start. What I'm hearing loud and clear from you is that you not only come up with a plan of how you will communicate, but you also do some drills at home. You have to select it wherever you're going to be, or you could possibly be as a family. What are some of the things that you can do? So at each space that you're at, your grandmother's house, your house, wherever, you do some practice runs. I think that is important. In fact, I don't think that we've ever had that as a suggestion, and I think that it is an extremely good one. Not just have a plan and talk about it, but have a plan and act it out. And so that's something that I think is a good key takeaway for our listeners, our viewers. And so, Brian, what stood out for you, or anything that you want to make sure that people heard or they understood or that they're clear on?
The part when it said, do not scream, you can breathe. It does. Because it's not usually like necessary to scream when an earthquake happens. Just stay calm and relax and just find an open space, as Star said, to just find an open space and just,
Yeah, so do not scream. That's a big one. We talked about it a bit before, and that obtains, or it applies, if you're at home, or if you're at school, or if you're in the bank, or if you're in the supermarket. Because remember, earthquakes don't discriminate. They happen wherever you are. And so wherever you are, and especially if you're in a building, do not scream, because you don't want to get all that dust in your system, in your lungs, to suffocate you and to cause further damage and lead to potentially lead to death. So I think that those two are very good ones. If I had to think about which one stood out for me, most everything that you guys said stood out. In fact, I think I'm walking away much more informed, and our listeners are walking away much more informed. I think that one of the things that I have to remember is DCH. Drop, cover, hold on. And you use it so naturally, but back in the day when that was introduced, it became a song and all of that, because it was the thing, and that people had to understand that it was important for them to drop, cover, hold on. So even though it's something that's normal to you when it was introduced at first, it wasn't so normal to the rest of us. And so it took me back a bit down memory lane, to the good old days of being introduced to it, which you guys walked into it, and so it's just a natural part of what you do. All right, is there any other tip or anything you want to share before we go on break? Because when we come back, we're going to interact with our guest who will be calling in. Anything you want to think about or anything you want to share? All right, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will be interacting with Dr. Ilyas, our guest for today, and he'll be sharing with us as well. All right, we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Sugar City Saint Kids, keep it sweet. Keep listening to Vaughn.
It's time, come on, rise and shine. You know, I know, we're gonna have a great time. And now we're past it quickly, you don't wanna miss it. So turn up the radio, it's you on the go. You on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Oh, you on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Whoa, let's go. I will learn new things. I will be creative. Grab your gears, let's gather round. An adventure is always waiting. With storytelling news for us, and we always know what's happening. We act, we play, we dance, we sing from 9 to 10 on Saturday morning. You on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Oh, you on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Let's go.
All right, welcome back, and we're having a whale of a time here on Youth on the Go on Vaughn Radio this Saturday. In fact, we have with us the CPS Tiger ambassadors who are here to share with us on earthquakes. We have Kajne Starkins, we have Brian Taylor, and they've been doing an amazing job, and they're representing their school and the disaster of the earthquake disaster with distinction. They're really sharing some good information. But ambassadors, we have a guest, and our guest is not an island. Our guest is joining us via phone, and so we'll get to talk to Dr. Elias, and we'll allow him to introduce himself, tell us a bit about what he does, and then share some information with us. And we'll have an interaction with you if you have any questions for him after. Okay? Good morning, Dr. Elias.
Good morning.
All right. Kindly introduce yourself and tell the listeners and viewers a bit about what you do and in relation to earthquakes.
Yes. Thank you. I'm glad to be back to your program. My name is Elias. I am the engineering seismologist at the University of the West Indies Seismic Research Center. My job is not so much related to earthquakes, but the impact the earthquakes have on the ground and the structures. So I'm more interested in what the damage is being done rather than where the earthquake was. That is the job of the observational seismologist. And I'm also dealing with anything that has to do with the ground and whatever it is below the ground.
Oh, wow. So how did you get into your career?
Well, it is through studies. So you have to finish a degree either in maths, physics, geology, computer science, and from there you have to specialize in seismology.
Ah, okay. So you have to have a sense of how to use technology well as well.
Yes, you have to have knowledge of a little bit of actually everything.
All right. So perhaps you can tell us a bit about earthquakes in the Caribbean and some of the work that you have done in relation to them. I know that you said you don't directly do the observation, but some of the works that have been done, the work that has been done in relation to earthquakes in the Caribbean region.
Well, we all need to understand that the West Indies is a very active seismic zone because of the subduction that is right below us. So we have volcanoes and we have earthquakes. So we need to learn to live with them. There is no solution. Once you decided to live in an area like this, that's how your life is going to be. We tend to separate earthquakes in two types, let's call it like that. The tectonics, which is mostly what you have been talking about, and I must say that I'm very impressed that the Charlestown Primary is very well educated.
Mm-hmm.
These are the earthquakes that are happening through the faults. And then we have smaller events which are associated to volcanic activity. And as you all know, Nevis is a volcanic island. So if the volcano gets activated, the way we will understand it is because you are going to feel, we will detect, and later on you will feel some tremors. Small earthquakes, but they will be coming from the volcano itself. So they are easy to be felt on the island. Nevis, as in its geographical position, is close to some large events that have happened in the past. I know that you said you didn't feel earthquakes recently, but in the past, centuries ago, we had some very, very large events, and we know that these events are going to repeat. We don't know when. As you just said, earthquakes are not predicted. They can happen at any moment, but the big ones tend to happen very rare. So hopefully it will happen centuries in the future. But we do know that at some point, big events will happen.
Wow. Kajne has a question for you, Dr. Elias.
Okay, so Dr. Elias, have you ever experienced an earthquake before?
Yes, many times. Many times, and I have experienced, I think 7 or 8 times earthquakes that actually damaged buildings and cost people's lives.
Wow, so have you ever been outside when an earthquake was active?
I have been outside, I have been inside, and I'm happy to say that all the information you said about what we do during the earthquake were perfect. Your listeners should follow your advice. And it is very scary because it is very sudden. So, as much as I have lived all my life around earthquakes, you are never really prepared for it. But the more you exercise drills, the more you learn about it, the more you know how to act, the best prepared you will be for that moment.
Okay, thank you very much for answering my question.
All right. Do you have any questions? Any other questions before Dr. Elias continues?
Not me.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? What do you do have you ever felt one?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question very clearly.
Have you ever felt an earthquake? Like you said you heard it 8 times or you experienced it 8 times, but like what type?
What? Oh, you mean how intense they were?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, so the 8 ones that I mentioned were big ones, so they were above or close to 7. But
Wow.
I have experienced hundreds of times earthquakes that were smaller. It's just a tremor that you feel it for a second or two, and you're like, okay, it was an earthquake. But here in Trinidad, we do have more frequent earthquakes than in Nevis. So let's say we feel an earthquake maybe once or twice a year. But where I come from, which is in Greece, we feel earthquakes probably once every 1 or 2 months, because there it is it's much more active seismic zone than Nevis.
Oh, wow.
All right. So how? Talk to the students. You talked about the earthquakes that you experienced, the 7 or 8 times being above a 7. What does that mean in terms of how we measure the intensity of an earthquake?
Just to clarify a thing, we measure the strength of an earthquake with what we call a magnitude. So when we say the earthquake was of magnitude 6 or 7, that means the energy that has been released from the fault and traveled and reach us as we experience it as a shaking. The intensity of an earthquake is a different thing, which can have different numbers. So while the magnitude is one number, a magnitude of 6 that says how much energy has been released, when we are studying the intensity is how the impact was wherever we want to measure it. So for example, if we have an earthquake, let's say of 8 in Alaska, which is very far away from Nevis, people in Nevis will not feel it. So the intensity of that earthquake in Nevis was 0. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
The intensity of an earthquake is higher as close you are to the earthquake, but it gets less high, so it lessens as you walk further from the earthquake. So in big earthquakes, we do a survey with the people after the earthquake, and we are asking them to fill a questionnaire that says, did you feel it? How long did it last? Did you see any cracks? Did something fall? Did water spill? And from all of this, we compile them and we make a map that shows the intensity of the earthquake along an area. And from there, we can understand the impact the earthquake actually had on, say, a specific region.
All right. I think we're clear on that.
I also wanted to emphasize, I'm actually very surprised that the young lady talked about the aftershocks, because people tend to forget about it and we don't emphasize it enough. If an earthquake happens and it's a big one, we know we will have aftershocks. they come with the big earthquake. We may have even foreshocks. So before the big event, we might have some other earthquake that kind of tells us that, you know what, the bigger one is coming. But after the main event, we know we will have aftershocks. And the aftershocks can last from days to months to years. What people must understand is that if an earthquake happens, and even if your house looks like it survived the earthquake, do not under any circumstance go inside the house. Because if an aftershock happens, the damage that it's going to cause is added to the first one. So even if your house survived during the first one and it looks like, okay, we're good, the second one that will occur will add damage to the house, and the third one will add some more, and the fourth will add some more. So under any circumstances, do not go back into a building unless someone who knows, like an engineer, will come, inspect the building and say, okay, it is safe for you to go inside. This is something extremely important because we have people losing their lives not at the main event, but some days and weeks later because of some aftershock, and they are like, oh, you know what, I just need to go get some change of clothes, or I need to go get my ID because I ran in a hurry. Do not do that.
Thank you for that. Kajna has a question.
Okay, so Dr. Elias, I have a question. Do you own your own company on these kind of stuff? Do you have a channel that shows these different kinds of interesting things that you have been telling us so far?
The university, the Seismic Research Center, has a website, which is the www.ueseismic.com. We have a lot of information there. You can also find a lot of information on the internet for all the hazards, and specifically for earthquakes. A lot of videos on YouTube of what to do before, during, and after. And of course, we always talk to people and give workshops. So maybe the next time that I will visit Nevis, I will come to your school and we can discuss it from close.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to that day.
All right, Dr. Elias, we are just about at the end. So we want to say thank you for sharing all the very important information that you've shared with us this morning. I know that our ambassadors learned a lot from you, and of course the general public did as well. And so we say thank you for sharing. Do you want to say thank you to Dr. Elias?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Elias.
All right. And so Dr.
Thank
Elias,
you for inviting me.
you're very welcome, and we look forward to, as Star said, when you come to visit and you get you have an interaction with the students. I know they're looking forward to that as well. All right, so that was Dr. Elias, and he was calling us in from the UE Seismic Center, and they do a lot of work in relation to earthquakes, from tracking them to looking at the after effects and collecting the data throughout the process. And so he was able to share some information with us, joining our esteemed ambassadors, or CPS Tigers, who are here this morning sharing with us on earthquakes. We want to say thank you to you, Kajne. We want to say thank you to you, Brian. You did an amazing job. We are proud of you. And to all of our listeners, look out for the next school on the 4th Saturday of the month of February. We'll be able to interact with some other students, some other student ambassadors who will also share about what to do before, after, and during our disasters as part of our disaster awareness campaign. Thanks once again, students. You did an amazing job. We are so proud of you. Until next week, listeners and viewers, when we see you again to share some important information that will hopefully empower our students and young people.
With all the power